Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Devil's Cut, a podcast about all the things that go bump in the night. If it's spooky, scary, or spine-tingling, we're here to talk about it. I'm your resident man-boy possessed by a devil, Matt Young, and here with me as always is a skeleton everyone should want in their closet,
Eric Rossi.
And one big, extra big hello to the Beelzebuds out there, and we want to welcome you to the official Devil's Cut podcast launch of Matt's Hot Wet Summer. Can you hear the breeze? Do you feel the salt in your air?
The seagulls.
We're here. Me and Eric. We're here on location on our very own deserted island that I got at a premium cost from a Crossroads deal I made like way long ago. So finally capitalized on that. Okay.
I was afraid on where you might have acquired this island.
Oh, forever ago. Don't worry. That guy's dead. So,
that guy. Oh,
yeah, a couple years ago.
I don't know.
He got so now it fell to me. So now this is we're here at the island, and well, from this week on, we'll be bringing you a briny assortment of aquatic horrors to keep you terrified and moist until September, basically.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Pretty good. Are you excited for the hot, wet summer? And also, do you think it will outperform Amityville summer?
I think just
all I need is like a little bit of outperforming.
I think we'll have no problem outperforming last summer.
My ego can't handle if this summer does worse.
I'm excited because growing up at the beach, the
yes.
ocean-based and wet and hot horrors have kind of slinked by my awareness. There's a lot of those movies that I have not seen.
Yeah, it's sort of like you were too already like entrenched in the water world, you know?
Mm-hmm. I just don't derive a lot of fear. I can't relate so much to some of these characters.
I think this summer will be a bit of a homecoming for you. I think
nice.
we're gonna give you some nostalgia for the good old wet days of Eric Yor.
Do we have food on this island?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, don't worry about it. We'll get some.
Okay.
Oh wait, you hear that? Oh, don't worry. That's the skelephone. Set it up. I think that's going to be Big Eric on the horn. Our resident brain in a jar. We sent him down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. He's doing research down there so he can tell us all the sciencey fun stuff about water.
How's he doing it from the jar?
Well, he's got helpers down there.
Okay.
The other Crossroad deals I had to capitalize on to make this summer happen.
Okay, we're pulling in a lot of infernal favors.
Yeah, you know what? You got to go big or go home.
It is the hot, wet summer.
It is the hot, wet summer. All right, but let me answer. All right. Eric, you're on.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. We're just excited that you're still kicking down there. I know it can get things get pretty dangerous down there at the bottom of the sea.
Oh, well, I mean, it's well within my expertise, although I am feeling a lot of pressure. About 1,100 atmospheres, to be precise. I am excited to be here and to tell you some wonderful facts about the deep, wet depths where the sun literally does not...
Ooh. Yeah, so this week, our inaugural Hot Wet Summer episode, we're not talking about any particular movie or show or book or game or anything like that. We're going even more macro than that. We're talking about the broad subject of why is water so scary? There are so many scary movies and books and video games that center completely around the ocean or lakes or I'm sure there's a river horror movie out there.
Oh, gotta be.
But why is it that we are so focused on the wet stuff? Why does it scare us so much? We already said it doesn't scare you apparently, but we're hoping to change that this summer.
I think the capital we as a species, we crawled out of the ocean for some reason.
Yes.
It was probably a little scary in there.
So we're going to be talking about a few different things today. All of us are bringing to the table some stuff that we want to chat about what we think makes water so terrifying. And we're going to start with our brain. What do you got for us?
Thank you, Matt. And I do want to start off just as a nice PSA, a public service announcement, as I feel this is my duty as the resident science thing in the group. I want to talk to everyone about the dangers of a chemical known as dihydrogen monoxide, or DHMO, as it is sometimes called. DHMO is a chemical that has been seen almost everywhere in recent days. So this is a chemical that has a lot of nasty properties. For one, it is an acid. It is seen in rain clouds. It is seen in ponds, lakes, and streams. It is, in fact, used for crops and, part of pesticides and all sorts of industrial applications. Even if your produce says organic, certified, all that, I can guarantee you DHMO was involved with the growing of those crops.
I'm scared.
In its gaseous form, it has the potential to cause serious burns to the skin. In its solid form, extended contact can cause tissue damage. And if inhaled, it can very quickly cause pneumonia and a host of other problems.
Scary.
Now, of course, at least some of the listeners will have clocked in that dihydrogen monoxide is a really pretentious way of saying water.
Boom.
Rossi didn't know what it was.
So it's not H2O?
No, it is H2O.
Well, it is.
Is it? It's just like a different...
But the way you're supposed to say it, the actual way to say it is dihydrogen monoxide.
Oh, is the di too?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
The little two.
If you can't tell, I failed chemistry.
That's okay.
Well, you know what?
That's why I'm here.
Spelling and stuff is already hard. You start throwing in little twos on top of letters.
For me, it was the moles. The moles.
Oh, the moles
me.
also forced me to quit science too. I could have been. Who knows where I could be on the moon right now if it wasn't for the moles.
So, but yes, everything I said, strictly speaking, is true about water. Obviously, it's used in plants. You don't want to inhale it. Steam can burn you. Ice can hurt. You don't want to be holding just ice for too long. And so, as we get into, a bit more, actual spooky stuff, just remember, kids, if you're getting information from the internet, get multiple sources.
All right. Yeah, what a wonderful intro into the terrifying subject matter of the week. So, what else, after that, what else you got for us? Why don't you kick it off?
I think that a good place to start is, if you'll all recall, there was the whole rigmarole with OceanGate.
Ah.
I actually don't really remember what that was about.
I can't tell if he's being serious.
Oh, you didn't know what water was, so we each get one.
So, OceanGate in 2020, was it 23? It was 23.
I don't know. You know how many gates we've had?
23.
Pizzagate.
It was 23.
So, essentially, this is a small company where their business model is they have specialized little subs.
Oh, okay.
I was about to say, how do you not remember?
I didn't know the name of the company.
There was an ill-fated expedition where one of their craft took a small group of wealthy clientele. Admission on this thing is prohibitively expensive for everyone who's not a one-percenter. And the idea was they'd come down to tour the wreck of the Titanic. The craft disappeared. They lost contact. And
another ill-fated ocean voyage. The ill-fated ocean voyage up until 2023.
And it was eventually determined that the craft did fail. Everyone involved was lost. And
spectacular.
There was discussion of improper practices, and that's why the craft failed. Not going to get into that. You can find that endlessly on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it was everywhere for weeks.
I'm discussing it because it is something in recent memory that allows you to get a sense of what's involved. The craft was diving down, as I said, to where the Titanic is.
Do we know how deep that the Titanic lays these days?
Yes. The Titanic is at about 3,800 meters or 12,500 feet. So, 2 miles and change, just straight down. And so, to get a sense of the forces involved at that depth, when you are just standing on the earth in your living room, whatever, generally speaking, you're experiencing 1 atmosphere of pressure.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Good standard.
And this represents all of the air around us, essentially pressing in on you, because air isn't weightless. All of the sky and all of the air around us being pressed down by Earth's gravity produces 1 atmosphere of pressure.
All right, I'm on board.
If you are going underwater, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere, approximately every 33 feet.
Okay.
Oh, that quickly, huh?
Yes.
Guess 33 feet's pretty
33
far.
feet's pretty far.
It doesn't feel like if I walked 33 feet, I'd be like in the living room, right?
No,
it doesn't
but
seem
if
like
you
that far.
dove 8 feet down to the bottom of a pool, you would be like, oh, fuck.
Oh, I can't. My eardrums, forget about it. I wouldn't even make it that far.
The fascinating thing about oceans and people is that they're kind of made of the same stuff at a macro level.
A lot of water.
And water has a lot of strange properties that are kind of necessary for life. Like, water is almost completely incompressible. The thing is that if you do go to the bottom of the ocean, where the pressure is astronomical, the water is not, like, smaller. It's not denser. Unless you are using specialized equipment with incredible force, you are not seeing any compression of water due to weight and pressure.
I guess I never thought about it in those terms. I understand the idea of going farther underwater, you have more weight above you, and thus it presses on you. But, like, water not being compressible is just something I hadn't even considered.
Yeah, it's actually because
you can't squish water.
Correct, correct. Not to any appreciable amount with forces that are at all realistic.
So for the other dumb devils out there like me, so essentially, like, it's not any harder to swim around at the bottom of the ocean than it would be at the top, right? Aside from the fact, assuming like you weren't dead instantly, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like it's thicker. It's not like you're swimming through Jello because you're at the bottom. It's the same.
And now, to be clear, if you were to swim around at, this depth, the cozy, 1,100 pressure atmospheres, we're talking 6,000, 7,000 meters down, you would not just squish, because you are mostly water. Now, the air would be driven out of your lungs, and you would be squeezed a little bit like a tube of toothpaste to get all the gases and all of the loose space out of you. You would extremely die, but you would not be a pancake.
I like the visual of a human toothpaste.
Ooh, really? I don't. So, 1 atmosphere of pressure corresponds to about 14 pounds per square inch. Now, unfortunately, this is not something that's easily comparable. Because it's just like, well, how many square inches am I? How many pounds is that? Now, let's be extremely loose with the science here.
Good, we love loose science.
And we will say that there is 100 square inches that is being pressed down on. So that corresponds to 1,470 pounds of air kind of pressing on you. And for the listeners, this is incredibly bad science. But it gives a sense, just like a little bit of comparison. So 1,400 pounds on you, and it doesn't feel like that. Well, it's because you're used to it. This is just standard operating procedure.
Sure.
And so if we go back to our pressure rating, where you've got, call it 1,400 pounds, 1,500 pounds of air roughly pressing on you.
Mm-hmm.
But let's compare that to the pressure that the Titan sub, the Ocean Gate craft, experienced when they visited the Titanic. The Titanic, only 375 atmospheres down there.
Oh,
pretty deep. Pretty deep. But the ocean gets a lot deeper.
You're deeper right now.
Yes, but who's counting? Now, again, I want to reiterate, this is bad science and math. I'm only doing this in an attempt to give a sense of proportion and scale.
Yeah, the people aren't coming here for hyper accurate science.
Yes.
No one's writing dissertations and citing us on science.
But with my poor methods, looking at this 1,400 pounds of pressure from an atmosphere versus 375 atmospheres is over 500,000 pounds.
Oh.
500,000?
Yes.
Dang.
At that depth, every square inch of an object's surface experiences the equivalent of 5,500 pounds of force.
Ooh.
Oof.
Now, so as a reminder, this is where the Titanic is. The Titanic is pretty deep as far as shipwrecks go, and you can go a lot deeper. Now, granted, as far as a lot of deep diving ocean expeditions, sea life. The Titanic is pretty deep.
Again, around, what was it,
12,500 feet.
12,500 feet?
Give or take. It's at only about 9,000 that sperm whales dive, which are, correct me if I'm wrong, the deepest diving known creatures.
Creatures entirely, or just mammals?
Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the deepest any animals go. I'm saying the deepest any, like the biggest change in depth that any animal species will participate in.
You know that sperm whale go deep.
Yes. Fun fact, sperm whales are believed to feed on giant squid.
Oh, yes.
And they dive down that deep in order to
a little snack.
In order to get at them. Of course, the reason we know this is because we have seen sperm whales much higher up that have what sure look like giant squid bites on them.
Because giant squids have a beak, a very large beak,
big,
but they
sharp.
also have the tentacles, the suction cups on their tentacles are also extremely barbed. So there's like suction cup spiny wounds as well.
Yep. Of course, it's a whale. It tanks these pretty well.
No
one alive has ever seen this happen.
The great battle between the kaiju.
Correct. Only a very small number of giant squid have been seen. Full stop.
It wasn't until like 2004 or something, right, where like the first alive, like actual recorded alive giant squid was like found, right?
And I feel like every year since, the Discovery Channel has been trying to convince me that they have to be there. I can't tell you how many fucking Discovery Channel and Animal Planet specials I've seen where they're like, we're hunting the giant squids today. We're going as deep as we could possibly go with cameras, and we're going to pray for 6 weeks that we get any footage at all.
And then 3 hours and 5,000 commercials later, and they're like, well, that's it. We didn't find one.
No squids.
Tune in next year.
Most of the giant squid that have been found have washed up on shore. And somebody just goes, holy fuck, that's a big squid.
Yeah, well, a lot of the theory about the Titanic battles that go on between, it's less of a fight. It's more that like scientists assume that sperm whales, go down to feed on them, and the squids put up a fight, but they really just can't do anything, and they have to break off and ink themselves out of there. And they probably die later from being crushed in a sperm whale mouth.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about giant squid. We know so little about them. We have a handful of corpses. There are some images of living ones in the wild, like they've been recorded, sometimes, not a lot. Based on examining the digestive tract of sperm whales and just seeing the number of undigested beaks that could only have come from giant squid.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not know about the beak evidence.
Yeah.
But they just got a sack full of undigested beaks. Oh.
Isn't that just a charming image?
I love it.
Yeah. The thing is that they have used this figure to gain estimations on how often do sperm whales eat these things, and based on that, roughly what kind of population there could be.
Okay.
It's well into the millions.
Millions of giant squids.
Yes.
That's a movie.
Yes. And that segues perfectly into my next point, which is that we know nothing about the seabed of the ocean. Now, there are some popular spots. There's the wreck of the Titanic. There's the Mariana Trench and the Challenger Deep, which is
Challenger Deep.
Absolutely metal name for the lowest known point in the ocean. But it's the lowest known
Yeah, it's
point.
just the one we found, and we're like, well, we found one, so let's study this one.
The simple fact is that we have actually tracked and mapped and recorded this tiny fraction of the ocean's bottom. We know far more about the surface of Mars than we do know about the seabed.
You know what? It's an old statement that crops up from time to time, and it always frightens. What's down there, Eric? And Eric.
Beaks.
Both of you. What's down there?
Apparently a
lot of
million
beaks.
beaks.
A million beaks. And
Millions, multiple.
and giant squid have 10 tentacles.
Well, yes.
10 million tentacles.
The real answer is a whole lot of sand, a whole lot of like ocean detritus, and microplastics.
We love it. Love those.
Microplastics stored in the balls.
I hate that you're right.
Yeah, we really do know nothing about what's down there, and that's what's so frightening.
Yes.
It is frightening, but it always kind of like makes me think about like, well, I technically know more what the inside of my eyelids look like than my own butthole. That's it to me. I'm like, yeah, well, it's
That's a
way
weird comparison.
it's way down there, and I
Do you know
can't
what the
see
insides
it.
of your eyelids look like, though?
Yeah, it's dark, just like space, and there's bright lights when I push on them. It's just like space.
So your eyeballs are like space, and your butthole's like like the Challenger Deep.
That's how I think about it. That's what keeps me from
That is some
fear.
You know, that reminds me of something I forgot to mention, which is that in optimal conditions, sunlight only penetrates down about 1,000 meters.
So it gets really dark really fast in the
Honestly,
ocean, too.
it's longer than I expected.
Now that's optimal conditions. Generally speaking, it's going to be quite a lot less than that. And since I mentioned the Challenger Deep, I'd be remiss if I didn't say how deep it was, and that is to say, roughly 11,000 meters.
Which is, can you put that in America for us?
In freedom units.
Well, let's see here. Let me just
Does the brain have the conversion tables?
let's see here. Just gotta do some quick trigonometry. 36,000 feet.
36,000. Fuck. That's many.
It is many.
The better part of 7 miles.
7 miles.
miles.
And but when you put it in miles, it goes back. It doesn't sound as deep anymore.
That's because he has a bad perception of
I
how
do
far
have
mile
a
is.
terrible sense of direction and scale as far as distance goes.
See, well, all of a sudden, I feel like we are venturing into a different sense of terrifying, because we could start talking about, well, if you go even deeper into the earth, what starts to happen?
You break through the false top and you get into the hollow earth.
And you find the dinosaurs.
And then you find King Kongs and dinos.
The Land of the Lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember that shit?
I loved that show when I was a kid. That was breakfast show for me.
But yes, if we wanted to talk about plumbing into the depths of the earth, that would be a whole new set of phobias and a different episode, I imagine.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the hot episode. We're still on the wet episode.
Yeah, exactly. If we ever do an episode on the core, we can circle back to to this
The core
subject.
The core only counts as a horror movie if you are a physicist.
Because of how horribly bad it is. If you're a physicist.
Or a biologist, or a chemist, or a...
Hey, if it scares somebody, it's fair game on the Devil's Cut. But no, we want to stick to the main phobias we're looking at here, which is aquaphobia, which is the fear of water itself. This is what you get if you get rabies. You get aquaphobia.
Oh, where they're like, I won't drink that. It's bad.
Yes, it's
okay.
yeah. Fear of the water itself is a different phobia. Really, what I think is the scarier and I think more prevalent phobia is thalassophobia, which is the fear of the vastness and vastness, emptiness, and or not so emptiness of the ocean. Thalassophobia can kind of manifest in like, oh, this is like a big empty space full of just water and nothing, and it's scary. But it also manifests in like, look at all these little guys in here, they're terrifying me. You know, it kind of can go in either direction, and it all still falls under the umbrella of thalassophobia.
It's just so funny to me because, like, to me, if I'm standing on the beach looking out over the ocean and seeing like the horizon with uninterrupted end to end, I'm like, a breath of
that's
fresh
actually
air.
I think that seeing the ocean from above was less likely to trigger somebody who has a so severe thalassophobia. It's more like if you see a photo of somebody like scuba diving next to like a blue whale, that'll get somebody. It's about like being under the water and seeing how big and void it is, but also like the little things that are swimming in there and also the large things, and it's all scary in all different ways, but it all still kind of counts as thalassophobia, which is why I think it's such a fascinating fear, because it's so encompassing.
Is this the same phobia that our friend of the pod Dylan suffers from, where he as a child was scared a shark was in his, he knew there was no shark in the pool, but he was also still afraid that there might be a shark in the pool?
You know what? I too had this fear of our friend Dylan's. I don't know if it quite qualifies. I feel like somebody needs to come up with a term all on their own for it.
Is that just general shark paranoia?
Maybe, but I don't know. I still don't know, because well, I guess phobias are irrational, right? That's the kind of what phobia means.
Well, yes. I like to say that I don't have thalassophobia because phobias are irrational, and my fear of the water is perfectly rational.
He's scared for all the right reasons.
All the right reasons, which we're in the middle of getting to today.
Well, I think that I've said most of my piece, but if I could offer a suggestion, it's entirely one thing to look at the ocean and to say, by God, that's a lot of ocean. We don't know a whole lot about it. The circumstances under which we find ourselves when trying to explore its depths are horrendous and extreme. But there's also just the possibility of the ocean coming to us. And so I believe that, Eric, you had something akin to that you wanted to talk about, didn't you?
Yes, I like to base any of my few ocean themed fears on the things we do know about, because the things we do know about are honestly, to me, significantly more quantifiable and thus terrifying. In 1826, French scientist and naval officer Captain Jules Dumont reported a wave as high as 33 meters or 108 feet in the Indian Ocean, with 3 colleagues as his witness. Yet he was publicly ridiculed by fellow scientist Francois Arago in that era. The thought was widely held that a wave could not exceed anything higher than 9 meters or 30 feet.
Right.
Which is hilarious, because I know that the guy who rode
He surfed the biggest wave?
Yeah.
You would know the
dude,
surfer
Garrett
facts.
McNamara rode like an 100-foot wave a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the advent of steel double-hulled ships in the 20th century that people were able to encounter 100-foot waves and come away telling the tale. Now, I'm not talking about tsunamis here. Tsunamis are an entirely different event than what we're dealing with. Tsunamis are a series of waves, or a wave that crashes onto a coastline following an earthquake or a volcanic eruption underwater.
Yeah, and there's actually I actually had tsunamis on my discussion list too, so we can just double up here.
That's funny you said it like that, because that's exactly what rogue waves are about. Yeah. They're about doubling up.
So you go on with your rogue waves, and we'll touch back on tsunamis.
When a wave is formed by a storm developed in a water current against the normal wave direction, so a cross section of waves, there's an interaction that can take place, which results in a shortening of the wave's frequencies. It dynamically joins together, and it forms huge rogue waves. Now, rogue waves are something that I have experienced firsthand.
Oh.
I was on a cruise ship once, and I was awoken in the middle of the night because I felt like I had shifted very abruptly in bed. And I opened my eyes, and I'm staring at the ceiling, and then the entire room went about 30 degrees to the right, rotating, and I rolled across the bed, and then rolled back the other way in bed. And I was like, holy shit, what the fuck was that? And it wasn't until the next morning that I was on deck and overheard two ship attendants who were like, yo, did you feel that rogue wave last night? That was fucking crazy. Rogue waves are terrifying.
Mostly because they're completely unpredictable, hence the name.
Even with the most advanced science we have, the quickest we realize that a rogue wave is going to be coming is a 2 to 3 minute period with very specific equipment.
Actively looking for the rogue wave.
Yes. And the thing about a rogue wave is that it is classified as a wave being twice, if not 3 times larger than any average wave in a given space.
Oh.
In 2020, there was a 17.6 meter or 57 feet tall wave that was recorded just off the coast of Vancouver.
Wow.
That's like a 4-story building wave that just popped up out of nowhere. And I watched they have these cool buoys that are out there, and they track the elevation of the buoys to determine the wavelengths. And I watched the graph where it's just kind of like bobbing up and down, and then all of a sudden it sinks into this deep, deep channel, and then skyrockets. It's crazy.
Now, question: do you guys? This isn't a. I guess this would be more of a tsunami question, but do you guys ever have the tidal wave nightmare?
I have. I actually had the tidal wave nightmare, I think 3 times, like right when we moved here to Georgia, the farthest inland I've ever lived.
I've never done any research into like the dream reading about what it means, tidal wave dream means, but pretty recurring nightmare, more so in my childhood, less so these days. But I would always have like we're at the beach, and then suddenly like 200-foot wave is coming at me. Can't get away. End of nightmare.
See, I've never had that dream, but I have had tornado dreams.
Ooh, also.
But then again, I'm from the Midwest, so
that's fair.
Makes sense.
And I'm from the coast, so that you know what? It makes sense. These days, I just get sun exploding dreams.
So these are the waves that we can't predict. What about the tsunamis? Is that something that we have dialed in a little bit more, hopefully?
Well, yeah, because mostly tsunamis are a direct result of something. So generally, when there's an earthquake,
it's like a thunder and lightning situation.
We're essentially it's a little more complicated, but yeah, and we have technology that pretty effectively, measures and detects earthquakes. So yeah, usually we can tell to some degree or another, we can give warning for tsunamis, but also there's like some, general misconceptions about tsunamis. Is the thing about tsunamis and what makes them dangerous is not that they're a big giant wave that comes careening towards, the coast, and it's like 100-foot tall wave that destroys all the buildings that it touches. It's more, it does destroy them, but in a different way. Tsunamis are more about the sudden rise in sea level. So basically, an earthquake happens and essentially, creates a wave that is mostly undetectable while it's in the ocean. Like if you're on a boat and a tsunami goes past you, you're probably not even going to really notice it. But it's like once it hits the coast, after the telltale sign of the beach receding.
Yes, it gets sucked out.
Yeah, it gets sucked out, and then all the water comes rushing forward. So it's not about a height thing. Tsunamis are more scary. It's about how far inland they go and how much, it's this used to be just like a highway and like a couple skyscrapers, and now the water is, 30 feet, above me now because the sea level has just suddenly risen. And that's where all the danger really comes from. So a lot of the time you'll hear, you'll hear weird numbers that make you go, oh, that was what a huge wave that must have been. It's not what they're measuring. So there was the largest tsunami ever recorded was a tsunami that occurred in Lituya Bay in Alaska. And so this is going to sound like a scary number, and it is, but not because it's a tall wave, but because this is the maximum like
the sea
level
change.
height that it attained. So it attained a maximum height of 1,719 feet. It basically wiped out like an entire Alaskan forest because it just rose up so high and just tore down trees. It deforested an entire area of Alaska.
Shit.
But again, it wasn't that it was just like this huge wave that was 100 feet tall. It just was so powerful and so much water like all at once that it but still pretty fucking nasty. I think more notable in terms of devastation is the 2004 that Indonesian tsunami that happened. So on December 26, 2004 at whatever 7:58 local time is, it's like in UTC, so I don't really know what the equivalent for us would have been. But a major earthquake with a magnitude of 9.2 or 9.3. There's some debate.
Holy shit, that's huge.
Yeah, it struck with an epicenter off the west coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. A massive tsunami, and here it is, a tsunami with waves up to 30 meters. So still,
big.
Still big. Devastated communities along the surrounding coasts of the Indian Ocean, killing an estimated 227,898 people in 14 different countries.
I mean, yeah,
and this is not
30
only
meters is like 100-foot wave.
Yeah, not even the most massive tsunami in history, but one of the deadliest just natural disasters ever in our recorded history. So tsunamis are scary in different ways than movies tend to make them out to be. They're not like skyscraper topplers, but we in our lifetime, fairly recently, all things considered, we've, as a, planet, we've experienced one of the gnarliest ones imaginable.
I mean, just the earthquake alone, 9 point something is fucking nuts.
Oh yes.
Well, what fresh new horrors?
I'm so tempted to talk about earthquakes, but off topic.
Yeah, I know. We have to wait for the earthquake movie.
Not wet enough.
What else you got, Rossi? Sorry, I hijacked your.
You're good. You're good. So the next thing I have on my list here is something that I'm not sure either one of you are very familiar with. It's the red tide. The phenomenon of red tides.
I did tell you I am only familiar with it in name. I don't actually know what it is in reference to.
So it is a little bit of a misnomer, but red tide is when a harmful algae blooms, or HABs, as the professionals prefer to refer them as, because they're not always red. This occurs when colonies of algae that live in the sea or freshwater quickly grow out of control while producing potentially dangerous neurotoxins.
Whoa.
These toxins can have harmful effects on people, fish, shellfish, marine mammals, and birds. It destroys nerve tissue that can affect the nervous system, brain, liver, and lead to death. Human illnesses caused by HABs, or red tide, though rare, can be extremely debilitating or even fatal. After a bloom dies, the microbes that decompose the dead algae use up more of the oxygen, generating a dead zone, which it essentially just depletes this huge space of oxygen.
In the water?
In the water.
So, like, fish will swim into it and die because there's no oxygen in the water to breathe
It's an
from.
otherwise, oxygen-rich environment in the water for fish who can convert it, but there's just nothing. Harmful algae blooms in marine environments are often called red tides. However, like I said, the term is misleading because some algae blooms can, wildly vary in color.
But some are actually.
But
just,
some
filled
are
water
red.
with
Yeah,
red
you'll
algae.
see it. Like if you're up on a lifeguard post or a lookout or something, and you can look out over the water, you'll see that there are patches sometimes, depending on the color of the
interesting.
water and how deep it is. But it'll look more tarnished.
I I have heard of these.
Yes,
I just didn't know
it's
them by the name.
unclear what causes specific ones to occur in some locations, because they can happen entirely naturally, but for the most part, they appear based on human activities. It's a lot of the times fueled by like runoff from human stuff like fertilizers and other
of course, it
chemicals.
would be from us.
These are chemicals that, promote growth in plant-like organisms or kill off certain plant-like organisms, and then it causes a chain reaction with usually like it has to do with like warmer waters. So like when I lived down in Florida, every year down there's at least some portion of the year where it's like you can't go to the beach because there's like potentially dangerous red tide going on. And these red tide like dead zones can last anywhere from like weeks to months. Where it gets really crazy is that it can be aerosolized like at the coastline and become airborne. Because of all the crashing waves and everything, these neurotoxins get pushed up into the air and then catch, on the fucking breeze. And you could be jogging down the beach and all of a sudden you're having major like bronchitis symptoms because your like bronchial tubes are fucking seizing.
Okay, so horror movie idea, an island town gets struck by like a hyper red tide.
There's actually a movie called The Beach House, which features a similar, like, it's a little bit more alien in nature, but it is pretty much the effects of red tide.
Okay.
So another huge problem is that these neurotoxins get into shellfish, which then, if
Shipped
ingested,
all over the nation.
Yeah, exactly. If they get ingested by people, it's even worse because now you have this super potent neurotoxin just in your little clan.
Yeah, I never even thought about it. Yeah, because then, the way we ship, seafood all over the place, the red tide can hit anywhere.
A 2002 study showed that that the algae toxins may be the cause for as many as 60,000 intoxication cases across the world each year.
Whoa.
People have been warned that, inhaling the vapors from the water during these events can cause asthma attacks or lead to other respiratory ailments. But toxic algae blooms are thought to also play a role in humans developing degenerative neurological disorders like Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
They are fucking scary. It is one of those things that, like, I never really had to deal with in Jersey. But when I moved to Florida and they were like, oh, yeah, we have red tide, I was like, what?
That's crazy.
And I had known about it prior, but like, yeah, you
when you're
flip
living
on
next
the
door
news,
to it, you're like, well.
Yeah, it's one of the things you put on the Weather Channel and they're like, hey, don't go to the beach for the next week because red tide. And like, I'm talking like in severe cases of red tide, you can get a coastline full of dead fish. Like overnight.
Gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't just happen in the ocean. It happens in freshwater too. There are cases in like China over the past like decade where, huge populations of people essentially have to live off bottled water for months on end because the water supply has become tainted with red tide.
Whoa.
So even if you're not in the water, you can still get fucked up by the water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's wild, man. Another check in the scary column for water.
It is one of the very, very reasons where it's just like, wherever I live, I don't want to be able to see water from my front porch.
I want it coming out of my faucet, unless I'm from Flint. And that's all.
Oof.
Sorry, Michigander.
So, to kind of switch gears, my other interesting fear, I'm not sure if it's still like a prominent fear for younger generations, but I knew for us growing up, we were still part of like the population who they absolutely like brainwashed into being terrified of the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, hell yeah, dude, the Bermuda Triangle.
So like to me,
Heard
when
all
I was
about
a kid,
this. Bermuda Triangle was like the the joke about how the 90s made us like terrified of quicksand.
Yeah, quicksand, sinkholes, Bermuda Triangle. It was the worst things you could come across when we were kids. But for anyone who doesn't know, the Bermuda Triangle is a watery triangle bound roughly by the east coast of Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. A explanation for some of these disappearances have ranged from aliens to cryptids to wormholes into the hollow earth,
Giant monsters,
anything
ghosts.
You could think of. Yeah, ghost ships. But like when we were growing up, it was just like, yeah, anyone who goes in there is fucked.
Yeah,
you
just
don't
into the Bermuda
you just
Triangle,
don't go
you're
in
donezo,
there,
man.
And it was almost like a joke that they would, pull out. It's like, oh yeah, we're just heading out onto the coast for a couple days. We're moving through this space, and they're like, that's the Bermuda Triangle. And you're like, yeah, we'll be fine. Always dead.
Was Earhart lost in the triangle?
Yep.
Amelia Earhart, I thought she was over the Pacific.
Well, so as I do not have this information in front of me, but I always remembered it being as she was lost, and it was assumed that she was roughly over the Bermuda Triangle at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
it would make sense. Because the Bermuda Triangle has eaten up more planes and boats than you could fucking imagine. Going all the way back to the 1800s, I think the first majorly recorded one that they attributed to the phenomenon of the Bermuda Triangle was in 1880. But with modern, technologies, we've kind of tried to narrow down what exactly goes on that fucks up boats.
Sure.
There's this phenomenon they've observed where huge rock beds, at the bottom of the ocean, are covered in these fields of methane hydrates, which is a form of natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly along the continental shelf, which is a pretty much right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. And they've theorized that when this methane becomes dislodged from the crystallization that holds it against these shelves, they shoot up out of the ocean. And because they're these huge chunks of giant methane bubbles, the boat gets trapped in this, as the bubble comes up under the boat, it displaces all the buoyancy from the water under the boat, and the boat just goes whoop, right into the fucking ocean.
Oh my god.
It just gets
like a
swallowed
sinkhole
up.
For the water?
Exactly. It's just like a big methane sinkhole that goes and you get sucked underwater because the boat can't.
God.
They haven't observed any of these in the Bermuda Triangle, but what they did was they started with experiments in Australia in this huge water lab, and then they did scale experiments with bigger and bigger scaled boats to see what they could sink, and they're like, we could just sink anything with methane. It's fucking crazy.
Yep, by screw up the buoyancy and the boat just all of a sudden isn't a boat anymore.
Yeah. But what I think is fucking really scary about the Bermuda Triangle is not all of the boats going missing, because boats go missing all the fucking time.
Yeah, it's
historically speaking,
common.
Boats go down.
Yeah, we're really good at losing boats as a population.
But the scary thing, I think, is the planes, specifically the Flight 19 incident. 14 men take off in a training mission exercise that was to leave from Fort Lauderdale at 2 p.m. They were going to fly 56 nautical miles east, drop some ordnance over a predetermined location next to this island until 3 o'clock, and then turn left, heading north, flying 73 nautical miles, and then making a final turn left and making a heading of southwest back to the base to complete the route. The practice bombing operation is known to have been carried out because at 3 p.m., a pilot requested and was given permission to drop his final payload. At 3:40, another flight instructor, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, in FT-74, that's his plane, who was forming up with his group of students for some missions, received a unidentified transmission. Now, Robert Cox is a lieutenant that is supposed to be flying a mission behind our initial mission.
Okay.
Of Flight 19. So a crew member asks Powers, who is leading the Flight 19 mission, for his compass reading. Powers replies, "I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost after that last turn." Cox, from the follow-up mission, then transmits, "This is FT-74. Plane or boat calling Powers. Please identify yourself so someone can help you." After a few moments, Cox tries again and gets a signal from a man who identifies as FT-28, Taylor. "This is FT-74. What's your trouble?" he says, again, to Taylor. Taylor replies, "Both my compasses are out, and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's
First problem.
broken. I'm sure that I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get up to Fort Lauderdale." Now, geographically speaking, they were supposed to fly from the east coast of Florida out, up, and back down. If this man is over the Florida Keys, that means he has flown the entire length of his mission south. 4:45, FT-28 radios. "We are heading at a 030 degree heading for 45 minutes. Then we're going to fly north to make sure we're not over the Gulf of Mexico." He was then told to change his frequency he was broadcasting at because they were having trouble triangulating him from his signals. He was asked to switch to a specific frequency of 3,000 hertz, which is like a search and rescue frequency. Taylor replies, "I cannot switch my frequencies. I must keep my planes intact." 5 p.m., he signals out, "Damn it, if we could just fly west, we would get home. Head west, damn it." They have absolutely no fucking clue where they are. It is an otherwise clear day at this point. All of their instruments are betraying them. An hour passes, 6:04. "We didn't fly far enough east. We may as well just turn around and fly east again," which would put them in the middle of the fucking ocean.
Which they are already in.
The other pilots in the team relay these next few messages. "Cannot see land. We seem to be off course. Everything looks strange, even the ocean. Ooh. It looks like we're entering white water. We're completely lost." 6:10, Naval Air Station Banana River, which is north of Fort Lauderdale, sends out a BPM-5 Mariner. This is one of those ships that can make planes that can make like a aquatic landing.
Right.
They have like the ballast on the bottom, so they
water
can
skis. On the planes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is like a rescue mission with like 13 men on board. 6:20, they get the final messages from the Flight 19 mission. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." Flight 19 wreckage is never found, and the search and rescue team in the Mariner is thought to have exploded mid-air and downed just off the coast where it was taken out, because there was an observable explosion and fire on the water from a military boat that they had sent out to go help locate the guys too. But no wreckage was ever found of the rescue mission plane either. Both just gone. So this is like 30 men all together just vanish.
Well, some of them blew up.
But we have no traces of it.
Yeah.
We have no wreckage to confirm. All we have is a guesstimate from a boat that was like, "Yeah, we did see a fire on the water and we heard what we thought was an explosion."
Damn, that's crazy.
It's just wild to me that these, like, granted, they're students, they're like training to become like, full-fledged pilots, but these guys should be able to like take a heading from the sun alone. If you're flying
they've already
out,
trained. They're flying, so they're
Yeah.
trained enough.
but if you're just flying east of Florida, making a left and going north, all you got to do is make another left. Like, you know where the sun is. They weren't flying in the middle of the night. All you got to do is put the sun on your right side, and that means you're flying south. Put the sun on your left side, that means you're flying north.
Makes me wonder if the guy they were talking to, this Taylor, like, I'm wondering if maybe there's something wrong with, like, his air supply. Maybe, like, he was like getting intoxicated.
But there was
from,
Taylor
like, low oxygen
and
or something.
Powers, and both of them got fucked up. Like, all the ships.
True.
I'm pretty sure there was, like, at least 5 planes went out for Flight 19, and none of them came back.
That's crazy.
If
Yeah.
One if one of them's in charge and is like getting loopy or something is getting fucked in the head, and
Follow
everyone
your
else
leader.
everyone else is just playing follow the leader. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, over time, that's not the only airplane to have gone missing in that area of the world. It's certainly not the only boat.
No.
If the scary stories we were told when we were kids are anything to go on, I mean, constant disappearances in there. Not even of just big ships too, little ships.
There's a specific ship, the USS Cyclops, that went missing.
Well, that's what you get for naming it the Cyclops.
And that was one of those ships, like, early on that went missing in the Bermuda Triangle, and they were like, oh, fuck, it's a cursed place. And then it so happens that the 2 identical sister ships also went down in different areas of the world, and that was determined to be from an overloading of, like, metal ore that was very dense, and they didn't realize that they overloaded the ship twice. And then it kind of made them look back and go, maybe we might have done that to the Cyclops too, actually. Whoops. I mean, known or unknown, terrifying
Bermuda
fucking place to
Triangle's
be
scary.
at.
But you know what? You're right, though. I haven't heard too much about the old Bermuda in quite some time.
You don't hear about it often, but I mean, I was looking at reports that were all the way up into like the 90s of people just disappearing. Like, even boats that would go down, they went out there to go check, like, do a rescue mission to save this guy's yacht. This dude went out with a bunch of people on his yacht. He had a specific device on the boat that was like, yeah, even if the boat sinks, X amount of it will float because of this specific flotation device. Mm-hmm. They're like, I'm going to stay with the ship. You take all of those people, then come back and get me. They never found the dude or his ship. Just gone.
What a crazy! I'd be like, fuck the boat. I don't need the.
Yeah,
if
right.
You have a
Like,
yacht,
what an
you can
asshole.
lose the yacht. All right, like you'll be okay. Go with the rescue.
Do you think the orcas got him?
Probably the orcas
I just
really
thought
seem
about
to
it. The
hate
orcas, that's
yachts.
a trend. They're real big on fuck the yachts.
I actually have a theory involving orcas. In one of the things I'm going to talk about later.
Please tell us.
Well, for I'm going to stay. I think we'll end. I have 2 subject matters here. It's more grounded, realistic, like water disasters. There's just a couple that I want, think are scary and want to talk about. But also, I'm going to end on a more whimsical note. We're going to talk about some mythological creatures, from all over time, and a little bit on how we can explain them, now with modern gaze, But one of the
Happy Pride Month, modern gays.
Modern gays, yeah, that's all you get for June, guys. So one thing I read about today. So this is a water disaster, and this is actually gonna touch on your rogue wave. I'm gonna jump off from that. In May 26th, 2013, a rogue wave struck a tugboat called the Jascon 4 right off the coast of Nigeria. So this is there's a
Jascon 4 sounds like a Star Wars planet. Sorry.
It does. So there's a lot of oil rigs right off the coast of Nigeria because it's a really rich vein down there. there just so happens to be like a lot of like maintenance going on and like repairs and stuff. And so there was this tugboat that was actually out there helping it was doing repairs on a different boat. And in the middle of the day, a rogue wave hit it was not even the middle of the day, it was the morning. A rogue wave hit the tugboat and capsized it and sank it immediately. It was like such a big, powerful blow to the boat, immediately sunk. Weirdly enough, the reason why there was only one survivor from this event, and the reason why there were so little survivors, is because of the location in which the boat was settled off the coast. There was a lot of piracy, and so it was standard practice to lock everybody in their cabins at night.
Oh no!
And they would get unlocked. They would unlock themselves in the morning, but they had to lock their. So basically, a lot of people couldn't get out of the room in time because they had to fumble for their key, unlock their door, and by that time, their door was already sealed shut because of the water. But one particular man, Harrison O'Kenny. At the time of the rogue wave struck, he had just gotten up in the morning and was going to the bathroom. So he was in a separate room, attached to his room.
Pants off.
And so that ended up saving his life because he got caught in the bathroom in an air pocket that formed as the whole rest of the boat sank to the bottom of the sea.
I am now remembering this story.
He spent some time in the air pocket in his bathroom until he decided he had to get out. Now, mind you, it is now pitch black because he's at the bottom of the ocean inside his sunken tugboat. He gets out from his bathroom and is able to, because of how a bunch of luck is involved, he's able to pry his main door to his cabin open, and swim his way in the darkness to an engine room that also had like about 4 feet of air at the surface that he could breathe in. Mm-hmm. He spends 3 days at the bottom of the ocean, breathing air, being eaten by crawfish. He starts to get hypothermia because it's so cold that he peels off, again, in the darkness, he peels off bits of the walls and gets debris from all over the room and creates a little makeshift raft. In fact, a rescue team was sent down on the first day and determined nobody was alive and then left. On the third day, the people that ended up rescuing Harrison were there for salvage. And in fact, you can go online and find the video of the guy's GoPro, the diver who was there, found like a hand just dangling in the water, assumed it was a dead body, went to grab it to move it out of the way, and you see Harrison grab onto and you hear the people go, "He's alive! He's alive!" This guy is just chilling in there.
That's chilling.
At the bottom of the ocean. And you can actually see his reaction as the people come surface. And
I can't believe you didn't show me this footage prior. This is crazy.
I wanted to save it. I'll show it to you afterwards. I'll even link the video in the description below this episode, because it's frightening, but also it's scary, but then not scary, because you're like, oh, he's safe. And actually, Harrison, it's a little heartwarming story. He conquered his fear of the water after that, and now he went and did scuba diving training, and now he repairs oil rigs underwater as a living. He just dives down.
That's like if you're an underwater welder, you make a fuckload of money. That's all I know about them. They're crazy and they love making money.
I mean, that guy just found out that the ocean wasn't willing to kill him and just said, "Okay, I'm gonna roll with it."
Yeah, I guess so.
He's like, I was down there unwilling one time and it worked out, so let's just go down there on my own. But yeah, I think that is such a scary story, but like, it's so interesting. Like, what are the odds? It was just like 17 strokes of good luck for this guy, but also terrifying because he accounts about how during those 3 days he could hear the fish like eating his crewmates, like knocking bodies about. And all the whole time, again, he was getting like nibbled on by critters that had found their way in.
Imagine, like, you know how people sometimes freak out in a sensory deprivation tank where they're essentially just floating in like
That's
some salt in
essentially
a
what he
place
was
in
in.
like, you know, a spa, a sensory deprivation tank where they're like, sorry, we actually put a bunch of hungry fish in here and a bunch of food. Sounds like an absolute fucking nightmare.
Do you think that at any point during those 3 days, he, like, nodded off, like, slept for a little bit, and then had to wake up and remember where he was?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, had to have.
I can only imagine. And what a terrible way to wake up, dude. Oh. So yeah, that's a horrifying story, and so recent too.
So
I'm surprised I'd never heard about that one.
So there's actually, apologies, but there is an extra detail, a fun little thing about that. Go on. That I recall, that when he was rescued, they couldn't just pull him out. We mentioned this very briefly when we were talking about pressures and everything. Even after being rescued, he had to sit in a depressurizing chamber for, I think, 3 more days.
3 more days?
Oh my fucking
so
God.
That they could, like,
just to get his blood oxygen correct.
Yeah, so that he didn't suffer horrible bends as soon as they brought him up. So they had to put him in so it's like he's now in a diving bell. He's still in this enclosed space that's just slightly less horrible, and still has to be there for days.
Has anyone ever explained to you, Matt, what happens during the bends? Like what?
Well, actually, I was just going to ask
is?
that. I know it has been explained to me because I watched 47 Meters Down a couple times, so I know it's in my brain. I just can't access the file right now.
So essentially, the oxygen in your bloodstream becomes pressurized at a specific pressure, so it gets either contracted or expanded at that pressure. If you then unpressurize it by going up too fast, all of the oxygen molecules inside of you then, expand, and all of your blood gets way too big for the inside of you.
So why do we call it the bends?
Because I actually don't know why we call it the bends.
Should it be like the pops or something?
I know this because it is, like, particularly bad around the joints. So, like, you can't bend your limbs.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah,
you get fucked up.
Bad
Essentially,
naming,
imagine all of the oxygen in your brain just goes, hey, we're like a little bit bigger now. Really fast.
Yeah. Horrible. All horrible. Yeah. One more water-based disaster. And again, this is not these two. The first one, I guess, is kind of a natural disaster, right? Because it's a rogue wave. We've talked about tsunamis and stuff. This one is not a natural disaster, but I think it is one of the most horrifying things I've ever heard of, and I'm barely going to touch on any of it.
One might say a disaster in nature.
Yeah,
not a natural disaster.
Nature, not a natural disaster. So, I think a lot of people probably heard about it, and if you're interested in hearing about this in greater detail, I highly recommend you there's a bunch of YouTube. There's actually a YouTube channel that I'll put the link in the description that I use a lot for research called the Infographic Show. It takes all sorts of topics, but always puts them in a nice, fun, cozy, cartoony video for you to like, so you don't have to feel too bad, right? And it works especially well for this one because it's a horrible story. But this is the and again, I'm not going to go too deep into the overarching, stuff that was going on, but this is the USS Indianapolis, the story of a American warship. So the USS Indianapolis had been on, it was a pretty well-regarded ship at this time, right? It had gone on a few missions.
It'd seen some shit. I'm pretty sure it had been bombed once prior and repaired.
Yeah, repaired. And so this was the tail end of World War II. It was actually like only a few months before the end of World War II. The ship and its 900 or no 1200 900 sailors, crew members, seamen. It's 900 seamen. We're sent on a top secret mission that, if I recall correctly, was a whole bunch of horseshit and was like stupid for them to have been on anyway.
Kinda. And also, I'm pretty sure this was the last mission it was supposed to run before it was like decommissioned.
Yes. It ended up being torpedoed and sunk by Japanese submarines in the Pacific Ocean, like off the coast of Indonesia. No, Indonesia was the tsunami. But regardless of where it was, in the middle of the fucking Pacific Ocean, doesn't matter. So the battleship was torpedoed and sunk by a Japanese submarine. It left these 900 sailors adrift in the Pacific Ocean for 4 days. 4 days where these people starved, drowned, dehydrated, burned, and were eaten by white-tipped sharks. By the end of it all, I think it was something like only 300 men survived, which seems like a lot. But if you think about the fact that 600 or 700 men didn't make it, it gets pretty bad. Essentially, like what happened was like they. At first, they split up. You know, they got their bearings, right? They decided, let's all keep together. Mm-hmm. There was a few, commanding officers who sort of like split up in the men into these groups, right? And they just had to sit and wait because it was going to be a couple of days before anyone noticed that their ship didn't make it, mm-hmm. right?
Top secret
to port. Yeah. So they have to wait for people to realize that they didn't make it in time and then wait for people to come out and then find them.
And the thing about going down in the middle of the ocean is you don't want to go too far away from where you are because that's where the people are going to come looking for you.
Yeah. And also very hard to control.
Yes.
Being in the drift, you can't really, it's hard, unless you actively swim, and that's going to cause problems because it's theorized that the very first night 200 men just bit the dust or drank the water right out of the gate. Like they either succumbed to their injuries that they suffered like
during the torpedoing,
mm-hmm. Or just couldn't like wade or tread water, long enough, and they just, gave out in exhaustion and drowned. And then so, days go by, right? People are starting to get super delirious. They're burning to death from the sun. They're going crazy, begging, like literally, like their skin, they're turning into cooked lobsters, and they're begging for the night. And then the night comes and the temperatures drop to such freezing, like so freezing that they're getting hypothermia, that they're now begging to be burned again.
We're talking about 2nd and 3rd degree sunburns on your eyeball skin.
Yeah.
Not just your eyelids, your eyeballs.
Mm-hmm. And then at some point during the second day, they realized that they were starting to lose members who were just on the outskirts of the little sort of pods that they've formed, because sharks were drawn in by the bodies floating in the water, these white-tip sharks, and then just decided, well, people are constantly like, people are still here, so they would swim by and just take nibbles on people, which would put more blood in the water, which would draw more sharks in, and then so people were constantly being picked off. It even starts to get even worse, which I won't go too deep into, but people started to get sea madness where they were hallucinating, and we even got down to like brawls in the water where people were murdering each other just out of like anger, and also doing a little bit of the molest to each other in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
There's so many. 300 people survived, and in fact, they used to. I don't know how many of these people are even still alive, but for a long time after, they would go and meet once a year in the city of Indianapolis to
just
commiserate with each other. And
I really thought you were
all
going
of them
to say,
are dead now.
I really thought you were going to say that they would meet in the ocean.
they go they go to the beach and
They
go
rent
knee
out a
deep,
pool.
and that's it. No, but it gets 300 people survived, and their tales are out there. They've written it down. They've told the stories, and each one is like crazier than the next. So if this doesn't,
The sea madness shit
go.
is so fucking scary because these guys would be, you'd be floating next to your buddy who you've been like serving on the ship with for months and months and months. And then just like within the course of a couple hours, he's like, hey, they got like ice cream and soda pop down there if you want to go get some. And then he just dives underwater and you never see him again. You're like, what?
Yeah.
But
Also, keep in mind this is World War II, and we're dealing with soldiers mostly. So we're talking about mostly kids. Like most of these men were 18 years old, 18, 19.
I'd say 18 to 25.
Young 20s.
Yeah.
Like, so essentially children just adrift at sea with the occasional like older superior there to try and hold things together. And some of the stories, man, are some of the most unsettling things I've read and heard. Yeah, an all around horrifying account of just maritime disaster.
Sounds like everyone involved had a terrible time.
Even the guys who got rescued had a bad time because getting rescued didn't even mean you were going to survive. There were guys that had been so deeply salinated by the ocean water and so deeply burned that when they went to grab their hands and pull them out of the water, they essentially degloved these people of their skin. Their skin just slurped right off. So you would go to like reach down for a guy and you
just get a bunch of flesh up with you.
Yeah, you get a long skin glove. That's what they call in the industry a skin slip.
Yeah, see, even that water, you just stay in it too long and parts of you slip off.
It's bad.
You drink too much of it and it kills you. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's it for those are just a couple of these disasters, both natural and unnatural, that I found like particularly terrifying and worthy of talking about. Again, you can find more about those stories online.
We've been getting fucked
links
up in the ocean for a long time. There's plenty of stories.
Yes, and speaking of a long time, our fear of water goes back so far it turns into myth, right? So water itself, scary. We haven't talked as much about the creepies living in the water. I've specifically avoided sharks because, one, there's a lot of misconceptions about sharks and how they actually behave.
We're pro-shark podcast.
We are pro-shark, and we are also going to give them the time that they deserve, both their movies and them as a creature, in a different episode this summer. So stay tuned for a Shark Week episode. But in terms of other creatures, earlier on at the beginning of the podcast, we did talk about our friends, the giant squids, right? And who is the giantest and squiddiest of them all would be the Kraken. Right? We all know about the Kraken. Now, funny enough, the Kraken is, most people know the Kraken as a Grecian mythological monster that Zeus unleashes on like the people of Athens or Thebes or whatever. Weirdly enough, the Kraken has nothing to do with Greek mythology. The Kraken is actually Norse. It's a Norwegian creature. First mentioned by this king Sverre Sigurdsson around like 1180 CE. So this is a paraphrase from a article I was reading. So many tales of the Kraken surfaced subsequently in the accounts of seafarers and pirates across the oceans, although the creature seems to have been based in the seas surrounding Norway and Iceland. Again, in media, we never see the Kraken anywhere near Iceland or Norway. It's always in like the Caribbean or in the bay, like a Grecian bay.
I definitely just kind of assumed that it was Greek or whatever, because that is kind of like the common representation.
Clash of the Titans sort of like stole the Kraken from Norse mythology. But yeah, so around Norway and Iceland is originally described as a crab-like sea monster. Originally crab-like, which we pro-crab podcast.
Hugely
also.
pro-crab on this podcast.
We love what's the term when everything turns to crabs?
Carcinization.
Yes.
But it seems that the Kraken underwent reverse carcinization.
It did. It was originally described as a crab-like monster with either tentacles or arms that could reach up to the top masts of sailing ships and a gigantic body, sometimes mistaken for an island. Over time, it did turn sort of into more of a giant squid, probably because of, sightings of the actual creatures
on account of giant squids.
On the account of giant squids being real, and maybe someone saw one, right? So the mythological sea monster aggressively attacked ships and either crushed them, capsized them, or pulled them down into the depths of the sea. Sailors were plucked from their ships during a voyage and eaten or just left to drown. Over time, the Kraken took on a more squid or octopus-like appearance. In some descriptions, the sea monster has 10 arms and in others 8, which makes sense because a squid actually has 10 tentacles. It has 8 regular ones and 2 long ones that, dangle out like well past the length of its body. That's what really adds to the that's what really adds to the length is those 2 big long guys. Both the creatures have 8 arms and suckers. The squid has 2 additional tentacles. It is thought that the Norwegians saw bits of carcasses from dead specimens of these giant sea monsters washed up on their shores, and from there, the legend spread. So there you go. So, people have been afraid of the Kraken for forever. We now, in modern day, can pretty much safely assume people saw probably a floating corpse of a giant squid and went, holy shit, and then sailed the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Not even knowing really that it was not alive. The accounts of, sailors being plucked from the boats, probably just guys who were suffering from gangrene and were delirious and just fell off the boat, right?
Now, also, worth mentioning, with specifically, Vikings and everything, I'm just imagining a bunch of Vikings find a sweet island, they sail back, and, they leave half their people there to, check out the island, other half of them sail back, and to go, oh, horrible sea monster, ate half our crew. Don't want to go out there.
Yeah. No,
Meanwhile, island all to ourselves.
Exactly. Now, if we want to talk an actual Greek mythological creature, we've got a pair here. This is the sister duo of Scylla and Charybdis.
Oh, yeah.
So these are the daughters of the god of the ocean, not Poseidon, but I forget the name of the god. He's like the ocean himself, right? And Gaia is like the god of the earth, but other gods, kind of are like.
Gotcha.
It's one of those. They're like more macro gods, right?
Okay.
So the god of the ocean and the god of the goddess of the earth had these 2 kids, Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla is more described as a creature with long long tentacles that are capped off by dog heads.
What?
Yeah, pretty weird. And it was, Scylla was known. There was basically this one bay that a lot of ships would have trouble navigating. And it was often blamed on Scylla or Charybdis. Charybdis is more described as a little creature with a mouth that powerfully sucks in water all around it and then spits it back out. Cool. Which, if you're living in today, you're probably gonna say to yourself, well, that sounds an awful lot like a whirlpool.
Yeah.
Which another terrifying natural event in the water.
Again, like the sinkholes and quicksand.
Yes.
I thought we were gonna run into a lot more of those.
A lot more whirlpools. Yes, but so it's likely theorized that a lot of these myths about Scylla and Charybdis specifically were direct results of ships being capsized because of sudden whirlpools that people didn't know were there. Because whirlpools tend to in a lot of places they tend to just happen in the same spot very regularly.
Yeah, there's
because
usually a lot of
whirlpools
geography
happen when 2 currents
have to support it. Yeah,
when 2 currents collide with each other. They tend to swirl around each other and create a whirlpool where they suck in water in a downward motion. Mm-hmm. And so Charybdis being the whirlpool, Scylla is often theorized these days to just be coral reefs that people didn't know were there. And so, boats sail into a coral reef and it gets torn up. People are like, oh, a tentacle dog head creature destroyed our boat.
I would love to live in a time where I could just get filthy drunk and run my ship aground and be like, it was a large monster, could not have been me. My sailing's impeccable.
And another fun, this is less of a creature and more of a event is people seeing the Flying Dutchman.
Oh, yeah.
So the Flying Dutchman is a big myth, pretty much anywhere from, in the Atlantic Ocean, the East India Trading Company, like that whole Pirates of the Caribbean area, of the world. All of those places people have, testified to seeing, throughout history, the Flying Dutchman, which is originally the lore, I think, is like, it's about there was a guy, like a ship captain, who was like on his way back. He had to make like he was in an East India Trading Company ship and he had to like make his delivery like in time. And so he sailed recklessly into like a storm-ridden area and then was like cursed for his hubris, right? And so now he's cursed to like sail the ocean for all eternity. And it's meant to be, if you see the Flying Dutchman, it's not like the boat comes and kills you. It's supposed to be like an omen of death, on the sea. But the reason why people report seeing like a ghost ship appear out of nowhere is from a mirage, essentially. It's a trick of the light. It's a thing in light refraction called a fata morgana.
That sounds fucking cool as hell.
Yeah, it's basically like things. When you're like staring like down a like blacktop road in the summer, and it's so hot, and the like horizon is shimmering.
Yeah.
It's essentially that, like, but like scaled up a bunch. And what can happen when the like light is refracting like that, it can make it so that it looks like boats are in, or anything that's on the horizon is actually like way up in the air. So that's where you get this like flying ghost ship.
Okay, that makes sense actually.
But it can also like the things that it's reflecting. It's reflecting another boat, but that boat may be way farther than the mirage is making it appear. It's sort of magnifying it. And also because of the way that it's not like that the refraction isn't just like static, it might just look like suddenly a boat has just appeared
and disappeared
out of nowhere and then disappeared. So like it's actually just a pretty normal thing. But again, because most of these sightings are back, in the 16, 17, 1800s, people are sailing in horrible conditions. Nobody's got any food. Everyone's hot. Everyone's dehydrated. There's gangrene and disease afoot on these boats. It's like it's
everyone's
horrible.
Covered in mercury. Too.
Perfect
they were
conditions.
Big on mercury.
It's perfect conditions for people to see things and go and absolutely lose their shit. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Flying Dutchman, and I wanted to go like not European, like for one of these at least. So I actually found a cool creature of Japanese mythology called the umibozu, which there's not too much information about them. I just found a lot of cool art of them, which I can post some links to. They're, and I'll put some in the Discord too. They're essentially just large, up to like, I think that, people have accounted that they're like 30 feet, above, the water level when they crest. They're like just people, like big guys.
What?
Oh,
that are completely bald with black skin or dark gray skin. And they just kind of like rise up above the surface and like bash into ships and sink them.
They're just big dudes?
Yeah, they're just big, scary
water
guys.
Giants?
Yeah. Just big men that rise to the ocean, and they have big bright eyes.
Ooh, the Iron Giant?
Man.
Yeah, they're just supposed to be mostly just signs of like portents of death and doom, but they've also been blamed for sinking ships and causing all sorts of havoc on the sea.
What are they called?
Umibozu, Umibozu. But what I think they might be.
Oh dear.
I think they might be early versions of killer whales sinking boats.
That makes sense to me.
Because there are killer whales off the coast that tend to hang out off the coast of northern Japan, where it starts to get cold and icy.
Oh yeah. Okay, I know that orcas have sunk some boats, but I don't actually know where.
I didn't do too much. I didn't do any research into the modern orca attacks that has been popping up lately. But I'm willing to bet, like, if orcas are going to be attacking boats now, they were probably attacking boats all this time.
Actually, from what I heard, I'm pretty sure the orcas like capsizing boats thing is like a new thing for them. They've developed like a new game to play.
Well, I think, you know what, Japan's always been much more forward, than us. So I think the Japanese orcas, same thing. They've been playing this game for a long time, and I think that's what the Omibozu are. Because you think, like, you say, the sailors are like, oh, he was a 30-foot tall man, and but you exaggerate. You exaggerate, right? Fishermen are always
Notoriously
overinflating how big their fish were, right? So you imagine you're just seeing like killer whales like breach the water. I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah.
Humans have said weirder looking things look like people. I didn't even talk about mermaids and manatees today. So
true.
So like I know that's my theory is the Omibozu killer whales sinking ships.
I think it tracks
back in time.
I'm gonna have to look at some of the illustrations and make my call.
I'll post them up for you guys after this before I have to go hit the dusty trail. All that being said, people have been afraid of the water forever. Like you said, right at the tippy top, Rossi. We crawled out from the pools forever ago, and we don't want to go back. It's terrifying in there.
They gave us lots of good reasons to leave. And they
not
keep giving us
there.
good reasons not to come back.
And for some reason, even though we're scared of it, we're like, well, we could go in like a little
bit.
We could get
a little bit.
We could get a little wet, right? And then time and time again, the ocean says, not today.
All of this has been a lovely primer. I'm very excited to see what sort of wet and hot horrors you'll be serving up for us. Do we know what's happening next week? Do we get to tell them?
We sure do. Next week, we're going to be talking about a movie that is new to me, but immediately upon viewing became near and dear to my heart. I love this movie. It's called Deep Rising. It's a oceanic horror movie from the 80s that I would describe as underwater aliens.
Ooh, very interesting. We'll have to get the rest of that next week.
Yes, it's a awesome, fun 80s horror romp. Really good time. After that, you have some audiobook listening to do.
I can catch up. I got a lot of plenty of free time.
Yes, we're going to be 2 weeks from now. We're going to be talking about another. It's been a while since we did a book, and in fact, the book we're covering is the follow-up book to the author of The Troop, which is the only book episode we've done before. This is Nick Cutter's second book called The Deep, and it is another. We're gonna have 2 weeks from now, two adventures to the bottom of the ocean, and it's gonna be really fun for both of them.
I'm thrilled. I'm glad that we got some very good numbers and some good science from our resident brain in the jar.
Happy I
deep
could be
down
here.
there in the ocean. Thank you, Big Eric.
Thank you very much. It's always awesome to have you here, and I'm glad we could get you on the horn even though you're at the bottom of the ocean.
Glub glub.
But I think that's going to be it from us here at The Devil's Cut this week. Thank you for joining us for the first, but certainly not the last episode of the Hot Wet Summer. I hope you guys will have as much fun as we're planning on having.
And don't forget to check out the stream because we're also the
hot and wet there.
We're doing all sorts of different horror-based aquatic games, and it has been. We started the stream summer a little earlier.
Yeah,
and it has been.
Yeah, we got more games
so far.
Yeah, we have more games to play than we have movies to talk about. So we had to start a little early, but yeah, you can go find us there. That's twitch.tv/The Devil's Cut TV. We've changed. We've rebranded. It's official. So check out The Devil's Cut TV. It's awesome.
Link in the bio. It's super easy to find.
Yeah, you'll find it there. Until next time, Keep it real, everybody. We'll let the brain get back to his science. And just keep on being the best Beelzebuds that you can be.
I guess we can go explore the rest of this island now.
Oh yeah, let's go see where they keep the goods.
Feel free to dredge me up anytime you have the chance. No rush.
Oh yeah, well, we'll get around to it.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
All right, bye. He's not gonna be fine.
Oh.
What was that?
Never mind. Keep it real, everybody.